Hi, my name is Volma Volcy with the Ring of Democracy, a nonprofit organization founded in 2016 to basically engage, educate, organize, and mobilize Black and Brown community members, but mainly marginalized communities. Over the years, we have done a lot of work to do this, and one way we do it is by bringing candidates such as yourself to engage with our community, so the community can learn a little bit more about your platform, what you're running on, and why they should vote for you. So I'll pass it over to you. You can introduce yourself, the race, the position you're running for, and why you're running.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Volma, and Ring of Democracy. I'm a huge fan. Y'all are doing incredible work. My name is Lauren Babb Tomlinson. I am a candidate for Congress in the California 6th District, a brand new seat out of Prop 50, and I'm incredibly excited to be here with all of you.
All right. You're running. Why you're running, and why should the voters, choose you as their next congressperson?
Yeah, I never really thought about running for office before. I'm a mom, a former union organizer, and I'm the chief public affairs officer for Planned Parenthood, the largest one in the country. And so this summer, when Trump and the Republicans absolutely destroyed healthcare with their vote for H.R. 1, I was personally devastated. 5 of my clinics had to close, and over 20,000 patients lost access to care for prenatal health, behavioral health, cancer screenings, and those were many services that I worked for years to make sure that our patients had access to. And so in this moment, we need new leaders. We need people that know how to fight extremists. We need people that are going to prioritize healthcare, think about lowering costs, and really pay attention to where we're at in this country. As a mom of a 1-year-old, I'm terrified of the world he's going to grow up in. ICE could come to my door right now and take my kid away, and we're in so many senseless wars. And so we need to send people to Washington that are actually going to get results and not just buzzwords. And I believe that my fight on the front lines at Planned Parenthood makes me the right person to earn the support of folks in this district.
No, thank you, Lauren. You just mentioned that we are in all of these wars, right? And as one congressperson, going to Washington, right? And knowing there's a person at the helm who doesn't follow the rules anyhow, what do you do there? How do you make a difference in that space?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to Congress, you're one of 400 plus fish, right? And so you have to find ways to get things done. In my career, I've worked across the aisle with Republicans, libertarians, anyone, right? And I think the important factor is to go in and understand that people are hurting here. The war is costing us money. Right now, we are paying ridiculous amounts for gas, ridiculous amounts for food, and we have to remind folks who's responsible for that. And so even our Republican colleagues are feeling that pain and squeeze in their districts, and so we've got to come up with a solution that gets things done for people here in America, and I've got to believe that we work across the aisle and we demand accountability, right? Congress has the power of the purse, so we need to be using our resources to make sure that we're lowering costs here before we send it abroad and cause senseless harm. And as a mom, I'm deeply, deeply concerned about the loss of life and everything that is happening abroad that is just unconscionable. People deserve to have safety, food, and be respected.
Yeah, and as a congressperson here in our community, there's a lot happening, right? There's gun violence, like it's all over the place now. Gas prices is through the roof, which means food prices is through the roof, right? Which means, if I was making, $10 a day, now this $10 is no longer $10 because it costs a lot more for me to be able to afford things like groceries and gas and diapers or all those things that I need to be able to afford. And how do you then, as a congressperson, bring resources back to the community to invest in the community and to address some of these issues? Because what I tend to realize is that Congress people don't really like do none of the local stuff, right? But the local stuff is what impacts the people who actually votes for you.
Yeah, I mean, just one tangible policy solution that the federal government can work on is raising the minimum wage. The fact that a pound of ground beef is more than the federal minimum wage is a problem. And so we need to go to Congress and solve that in terms of what workers are able to make. And then I hear from young people all the time who, they're getting a raise here or there, but it can't keep up with inflation. And so we really need to prioritize good paying jobs. I'm a strong believer in clean jobs, clean energy jobs, and thinking about ways in which we can build and make things here in America so that people can thrive in different ways, right? And maybe you don't want to go to a four-year college. Maybe you want to go to a trade school, and we need to make that accessible for people as well. So it starts with making sure that there's access to good paying jobs. We're thinking about the wages people are able to make. And then, I'm feeling the squeeze at the grocery store. I never should have introduced my child to raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, because it costs too much. But how we work on that is there's federal legislation to make sure that we're not using AI tools and other mechanisms to drive up the cost when it's unnecessary. And as we were talking about gas, I strongly support maybe, eliminating the federal gas tax until we figure this out so that people can afford to get to work and pick up their kids. So as we think about federal solutions, people will come here and tell you everything they've done in the last 20 years. But none of that matters if we can't put food on the table, if seniors are making hard choices between their heart medication or paying the rent. And we've got to get back to the bread and butter issues. People just want to live well. And I hear from young people all the time who can't afford to live where they grow up, and they don't think they'll have families, and they certainly don't think they can buy a home. And that's not the America our generation deserves, and we need leaders that understand the challenges and are willing to do the hard work to solve it.
Yes, thank you. And you briefly mentioned AI, and you also talked about, jobs, good paying jobs. With AI, over the past few years, it's all I can hear people talk about, and it is a real threat to the current workforce. What are some legislation as a congressperson would you be looking at to make sure working people are protected and AI is not coming in and taking over majority of those jobs, which a lot of people are fearful that's something that's going to happen?
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting and unique place, very similar to when the internet came around, right? Like we figured out a way to make that work in a way that was productive and made it a tool. And so we need to have conversations with all parties to figure out ways in which we use this tool to advance the economy, but also do not displace workers, right? And so I think we're at a moment in which we need to have these conversations because I don't believe anyone wants unregulated AI. And as someone who's a parent, I'm deeply concerned about AI and the use of children, right? We're seeing so many children using chat boxes as friends, or they're getting bad advice that could cause self-harm. And so we deeply need to look at the regulatory space in which we can keep our kids safe and also make sure that we're using it as a tool and not to displace workers. And I believe that having conversations will get us to a comprehensive package of legislation where people feel safe and heard and also have an opportunity to thrive and innovate in the space.
Yeah, thank you. And you are a mother. I'm a father. And one of the most expensive things in life to me, next to my mortgage, is childcare expenses, right?
Yeah.
As a congressperson, do you have solutions? Are you thinking about anything? Because some people might as well just stay home as opposed to putting their kids in childcare, especially if you're making minimum wage in California.
Well, yeah, I have to say that our president, amongst always being deeply offensive, I was incredibly offended when Donald Trump said that we have money for war, but not daycare, which is insane, right? And so there's already a fantastic piece of legislation introduced by Senator Warren and Congressman Ro Khanna that would cap the price of daycare based on income. So almost on an average, parents would be paying $10 a day through that plan. They could also be stipend if they would choose to stay at home. And we know that daycare is it's a real life thing to allow people to work, right? Our economy only thrives if our children are taken care of well. And we need to make sure that we're also creating a pipeline for those childcare workers to be paid fair wages. And all of this is possible if we stop giving money to millionaires and billionaires and really invest it back into the most vulnerable communities. And so as a mother whose daycare is more than my mortgage, the costs just keep going up, we desperately need to address this because so many families are struggling just to get by. And daycare is a reason for that struggle.
Yes. I feel it every week.
All my money goes to my kids, but hey, that's why we need working people in Congress. I'm endorsed by Vote Mama, who says there are more men named John in Congress than mothers with young children. So I've got to imagine if we elect young mothers who are always thinking about how to put food on the table, always thinking about how to take care of their families and their kids, we're going to get family first policies that move this country in a direction where it actually gets things done for working people.
Thank you. I'll pivot here. As an immigrant in this country, what's been happening over the past, forever, but like over the past couple of years, it's just been insane. I'm Haitian. There's about like 350,000 Haitians who's just like waiting at some point for the court to say something for them to be able to like stay or be deported, right? We're not even talking about like the issues with ICE and all the stuff, like people just like regular people just like worrying about their safety. As a person who is running for Congress, like what do you say to our community around all these different issues, like especially with ICE just jumping in and just at times kidnapping people to some extent?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have ICE in the early 2000s, and so we certainly shouldn't be putting money into this this administration's war on people that are working hard, right? And as someone who deeply does not sit well with me how ICE is attacking families, and I get worked up about it because everyone deserves to feel safe, period, full stop, right? And Donald Trump is using ICE as a weapon to come after people that he knows will vote against him, right? And that is not what this is about. And I think Democrats and Republicans need to do a better job of focusing on comprehensive immigration reform. We have kicked the can down the road for far too long, and we need to make sure that people have legal pathways to citizenship here in this country because they are a part of our thriving economy. California is the breadbasket of the world, and so it doesn't work without our immigrant communities. We need to make sure that they pay taxes too, right? And so it's all to stoke fear, and we need to eliminate ICE if that's what it takes to have people feel safe and heard. And I will be on the front lines to make sure that that's the fight that we're pushing. This is deeply hurting communities like yours, and we need to make sure that we have policies in place that'll make sure people have a way to feel safe and heard. And I understand the concerns. I know the protected worker status is something that's at risk right now, and it could only get worse with the delays in the federal courts and them showing up and picking people up. And so we definitely need to figure out ways in which we have a community that's going to support our immigrant workforce and community members, and also take a stand. We will not support ICE harming people, full stop.
Thank you. What would you say to folks who are saying in this race, there's a bunch, I guess, like people who's been in office before, like some type of office, and they're gonna say, well, Lauren may not have the experience, the knowledge. I don't know if anyone has the knowledge for Congress per se until you get there. But what would you say to those folks who may not think you're ready to take on Congress?
Yeah, look, I have a full daytime job that I love and adore as the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the largest Planned Parenthood in the country. And so every single individual in this race that has held elected office has come across my desk talking about what we can do to expand access to care or keep our patients safe. And so I've been behind the scenes of a lot of legislation statewide, locally, and federally to make sure that patients at Planned Parenthood get the care that they need. And so in this moment, life has not gotten better for anyone, right? I don't care what policy you think you did this year or that year. we are still at a crisis in our world, and our democracy is on the line. And so right now, what people want to hear is, let's turn the temperature down, let's get things done for the American people, let's focus on lowering costs, getting affordable health care. And I'm someone that's actually stood up to Trump and the Trump administration and their horrible policies at Planned Parenthood every single day. And lastly, I know how to work with anybody. I know how important it is to work across the aisle, to get things done, to be transparent, to show up, and to keep my word. And so what I'm offering folks is a new opportunity to elect someone that's excited about our future. And I have to be, because my 1-year-old's future is on the line. There's nobody that's gonna fight for better policies than a mama bear who wants to make sure that this country is something that her kid can be proud of.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned healthcare. How do we go back to affordability? Because at the beginning of the conversation, we talked about how so many people are going to lose access. I think in our last conversation with Dr. Flo, as a matter of fact, because of the big bill that passed last year. How do we get back to affordability, and knowing right now there are laws in place to kick people out?
Yeah, I mean, starting 2027, so many people are going to just lose access to their health care, right? And people are already making the hard decision to just go without health care because they can't afford it. And so what we need to do is roll back all of the cuts to millionaires and billionaires and invest it into a system that works. And we know that the healthcare system has been broken. It doesn't work, right? When you're paying out-of-pocket deductibles or you can't afford your prescription medication. And so in this moment, we have an opportunity to really lean into Medicare for all, and we have an opportunity to reimagine what healthcare looks like, because what this administration has done is created a public health crisis by design. What this means is people will not go and get preventative health care, they'll just show up in the ER, and that's going to cost counties, cities money. And so what we need to do is really get under the hood and figure out ways in which people can get back to the basics of just healthcare being a human right. And how we get there is by people calling their members and saying, this is what we need, because that is the world we're going to be in because of this administration. And the money is there. We just need to tax the rich to get it done.
How do you think we do that then, when corporations are like this huge looming factor?
Yeah. We close the loopholes, right? Don't send your money into some Bermuda account, right? We tighten the ropes around what they're able to pay. I think I saw something online. I paid more taxes than Amazon and CVS and whatever all these corporations are doing to have red tape that allowed them to not pay their fair share. And so I want to get in Congress on day one and figure out ways in which we can take some of those resources back and get them into the social safety net. Because as we know, they also cut SNAP benefits. And so there are people in this community that can't afford to eat right now because they're afraid of the red tape that means the worker requirements or the immigration requirements. And so we have real people in this district suffering, and my job is to make sure that they live well, not corporations and millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah, but how about the lobbyists? How do you get, because they are in Washington, they probably spend more money on lobbyists than they do in taxes. How do we prevent that? How do you prevent, how do you talk with your colleagues across the aisle who always be voting that way?
Yeah, you have to remind them of what is happening in their communities, right? You're asking this, I always say this is the biggest job interview of my life. And I have one question to answer is, how are we going to make life better? And I have to believe that the members in Republican states, their families and the people in their district are suffering just as much. And so where can we find common ground, right? They always say the party of families. And so if families are suffering, what are you going to do about it? And I think the issue with Republicans right now is they're also afraid of being primaried through MAGA, right? And so we have to find ways to get their people and their base activated, and also work with them on where we can find common ground. And so I'm not going to be naive and say we're going to solve this on day one, or even me as one member of Congress is going to solve all the problems. But what I will do is hold true to my values, and I will fight to make sure that what I say I deliver on, and it won't just be political talking points. And if I can't get something done, right, it's important to explain to people in the district why we didn't get that done and keep fighting, right? So we can't give up, and we can't allow them to just have the status quo be where it is, because it's not working for so many people.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna close. If you will take just about 60 seconds to tell the viewers, the audience, why you're running, and again why they should again vote for you, and why you're the best candidate for the job.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Lauren Babb Tomlinson, and I'm running because of my mom, a former union organizer, and a Planned Parenthood leader. And in this moment, we need people who are going to fight to lower costs, fight for affordable health care, and who are going to show up, and I will fight for you just like I'd fight for my own family. As the only person endorsed by Planned Parenthood Action Fund, Congressional Black Caucus, and Emily's List, I know I have what it takes to do the hard work. And so I've never run for office before, but in this moment, we need new leaders who are going to get things done in Washington. And this is our generation's civil rights moment. If we do nothing, we will not have a democracy. And that is not a world I'm okay with having my son grow up in. So I'd love to earn your support. You can reach out to us at www.lbtforcongress.com. And I would love to connect with you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.